So last March, Lori, this goes with last class. Last March, Lori and I were in, this was actually in in Arizona, southern Arizona. And we were on a reservation. And I forget which reservation it was, but they were having a powwow. And so behind me, where I took the photo, people were dancing and a lot of ceremonies happening. But they were selling things, and they were selling T-shirts and posters. And I want to show you what was on. So these are indigenous Americans. So go back to last class and the question about immigration and how we think about it. So go to the next slide. This was a really popular T-shirt and poster. And, it was on like coffee cups and, the kind of place where it would be. Established BC, right? So, look at that. This is a native perspective. And, you're on the res, and this is native land, right? This is all native land. But there, we're on the land of indigenous peoples. And this is, people are walking, this is a T-shirt, And I think it just really says something about a very different worldview. And I think sometimes as I kind of put different ideas out there about things like immigration and how to think about it and open borders, closed borders, how to really go about it, the things that I'm taking into account so many different perspectives, including this one, which I think is a perspective. The native perspective is one that just doesn't get addressed. And when you look down that list, it's pretty intense. Yeah. Okay, next slide. The other thing I wanted to say, this came into my inbox the other day. And if you look at, wait, do you have a, if you look here, so 1970, so I'm 10 years old at this point. The number of foreign born in the U.S. population is 1910 is 14.7%, and then it just drops because of what I talked about, the immigration bill that gets passed. And it dips as low as 4.7% when I was 10 years old. And then look what happened in a really short period of time, in just 55 decades. And so you wonder what kind of freaks people out a little bit. It's like not necessarily that Americans are anti-immigrant or anti-black and brown people, because most immigrants are black and brown at this point. But it's such a huge change. It's such a huge change. And so people, really have this kind of question about what's happened to the country in such a short period of time. And everyone has this. We'll have this experience in different ways, And so anyway, I thought it really good to kind of show that part of what we're experiencing with people getting kind of freaked out about immigration is that right there, man. So anyway, I thought I'd just show you that, right? And it's too easy to just claim that people are bigots and people are narrow-minded and people are racist and that kind of thing. People are actually also kind of freaked out by the changes, the radical and rapid changes that are happening in this particular land. Okay, cool? That's cool, right? To see that effect. All right, let's start. Introduce yourselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruba, and I'm from State College, Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Pakistan, and I'm a freshman.
How long have you been in State College?
I immigrated last year in September.
Oh yeah?
So, yeah.
Okay. Wait, you immigrated with your family?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah?
Yes.
Do your parents work at Penn State or?
No, my extended family was here in U.S., so we just moved here last year.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Ruba.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey everyone, my name is Naji. I'm a senior studying cybersecurity, and I'm from Saudi Arabia.
Hi everyone, I'm Aliyu. I'm from Gambia. I'm a junior studying computer science.
And all right, thanks y'all. And all three of you are Muslims. So we're going to have a conversation today about religion and about Islam and about a few different things, okay? Before we go to the first slide, so do you, just out of curiosity, when you think about the United States, do you see the U.S. as a Christian nation?
Yes.
What do you see?
There's majority of Christianity or Christian people over here.
So when you came here, you're like, okay, I'm emigrating to a Christian country.
I did not think of it as a Christian country, but a Western society where there are, I don't know if I should say that, but like Islamophobic thingy is a lot more.
Okay,
Yeah.
a Western society where,
than in any other country, like in Arab countries or in South Asia or Asia. Like
or
this.
certainly in Pakistan.
Yeah, there is no Islam.
Yeah. Okay, how about you? Do you see this as a Christian country?
Yeah, I would say the same. I feel like at least maybe half are Christian, or like they're born Christian.
So you just
yeah.
you just have a sense like, yeah, it's a Christian. Bro, it's like kind of in your mind, right? Aliyu, do you what's it when they say, oh yeah, it feels like a Christian nation? What's that mean to you? Christian nation.
I would say maybe a nation that's like predominantly Christian, I would say. Like they follow the religion of Christianity. I would say, but I lean more towards like the Western society, like they described it as. I would say.
But when you think about Western society, don't you think Christian, really? Because you're thinking about Europe, Latin America, South America. But so when we think about Christian, again, I just want to kind of dig into this. I don't have an answer to it, right? Think like, oh, it's a Christian country. What's that mean? Like, what's it mean? Like, really, what's it mean in sociological terms? Not just people believe in Jesus or whatever. I don't know what they believe in. Is that what Christians believe in, Jesus? I'm just kidding. Yeah, what's it mean to be a Christian nation?
Where there's majority of Christian people and they believe in Jesus.
Hang on, I'm going to cut you off. What's it
Yeah.
mean to be a Western nation?
Western nation would be a nation that consists of all the religions, be it the Jewish religion, the Christian religion, the Hindu religion. Yeah.
So when you think Western, you think this sort of multi-ethnic, multi-religious.
Yeah.
How about the two of you? Do you have an answer to that question? Like, what's it? So when you think about it, what do you see? By the way, this is just a side question. I haven't even started class yet. I was just curious about it.
I would say it's probably like 50-50. Like maybe some of them are like just atheists, but the majority are Christian.
Yeah, but what's it mean to be a Christian then? Who are Christians? What do they believe? What do they think? What do they do that's different than somebody else?
Just the people that maybe believe that Jesus was the Son of God.
They believe that Jesus is the God now.
But you guys are Muslims. You believe
Yeah.
that too.
No.
But you believe that he was a prophet.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Not the Son of God,
Yeah.
but a prophet. Okay, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, what else? All right, so Jesus is the Son of God. Well, anything else that makes it different than, say, like an Islamic country?
I would say it's it's more diverse in like ethnicity, religion, and things like that. Because in like for instance, in Gambia, it's predominantly Muslim.
Yeah.
It's like 95%.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really say it's a Western because it's not as diverse. It's more like.
So for you all, Western means like diverse, huh? Okay, which is okay. That's cool. I hear that. Okay, another question. What percentage of the U.S. is Muslim? You guys have any idea?
I'll probably say like 10 to 15.
10 to 15? What would you say?
As U.S. citizens or
Yeah.
or nationals?
No, as U.S. citizens, we'll say.
Citizens will be like 20 to 30 because now most people are immigrating towards U.S. more.
Okay.
So, yeah.
20 to 30%.
I guess.
How about you, man?
I'd say 15 to 20%
Uh-huh.
are Muslim.
Wow, that's so interesting. Man. Bro, what would you say? Mac?
I'm guessing like 20 to 30.
20 to 30?
Globally, it's on the rise.
Dude, does any 10? 5? 8? Okay, listen, go to the next slide. It's 1, by the way. So there aren't many Muslims here, really. Yeah. So it's pretty small. You all are very much a minority here, you know. And so, you know, go figure. That means in this classroom, if this classroom was a cross-section of the United States, like 8 people in this room would be Muslim. But as it turns out, it's, I don't know, it's probably 50% because there are so many international students, right? So, okay, so here's the thing. And Jewish is basically 2%, right? So it's kind of similar. You know, by the way, you know, if I ask you what percentage of the population is gay or lesbian, if I ask you to write down a number and we averaged out all the numbers that you wrote down, it would be kind of what the three of you just said right there. People on average will think like 15 to 20% of the population is gay or lesbian. But it's also very, very tiny, you know. So it's about 4%. Maybe it's growing a little bit because people are more open. But okay, so how is that that you all were so wrong, man? What's it mean that it's only 1%? Like, what are you thinking right now?
If we see from Penn State, then I would assume that most students are international, so they would not be counted as the U.S. citizens, or that's why, like, this was my first year, and Penn State was like the first ever interaction with the community. And by looking at the community, I assumed that. But like, if now I think it is because there are a lot of international students.
For sure.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, there are more hijabis in this classroom than you would get in an average-sized American city in Nebraska, you know? Yeah. But how about you, the two of you? How is that you're so wrong? Wait, hang on.
I would say because I believe there would be, I was on the rise, I would think, so I thought it would be, and plus the US is known for being like quite diverse, so I was just taking that into consideration to my answer, I would say. So you would expect, if we're that diverse, which is what all three of you are saying, that's part of what makes the country, then it's like, okay, well, it's going to be a lot of Muslim students.
I would say my perception was kind of like skewed because of how many Arabs there actually are. Not just Arabs, just like Muslims in general here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Malaysians. There's a lot of like the Gulf country, people from the Gulf.
Yeah, like the MSA is a big student organization, right? Dude, that's the Muslim Student Association. Huh. All right. Well, here, I have another question. Would you have something you were going to add or not?
I was just going to say that it concludes that U.S. is diverse according to ethnicity and not religion.
Yeah. Exactly. It's kind of... Okay, so here, I want you to do two things. Look at the non-affiliated. So these are Americans who are like me. So I grew up my family was Methodist, or specifically United Methodist. I grew up in that, so I technically was baptized and christened as a United Methodist. They probably still claim me, but I haven't been inside of a Methodist church in a long, long time. Well, I actually was in Europe. I was in a Methodist church not too long ago, but it's not my stated religion, right? I did, as I mentioned probably before, I did accidentally convert to Islam. So I suppose I'm Muslim in a way, right? But I'm really not. I'm nothing, okay? Did I tell that story?
No.
How I accidentally converted? I was in Turkey, and I just was, hang on. Guys, come on, man. So I was with a Sufi who we were really connecting and praying together, really, really connecting. And yeah, just really engaged. And we were just like this, man. He was really cool. We were like in this spiritual connection together. And he said, and I knew he didn't speak English, and I didn't speak either Turkish or Arabic. And I knew he was trying to get me to repeat after him. So I did. There is no God but Allah. I did the whole thing. And afterwards, he was like, okay. He was able to say, okay, well, now you are Muslim. And he named me Suleiman, which means teacher. Like it's cool. So Suleiman is my Muslim name, but I'm like, all right, I don't know. Okay. So I did text my wife and told her I converted to Islam, and she was.
But you prayed with him by choice?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Yeah, no, for sure. No, and then I was prayed in the mosque too, the whole thing. I just watched what other people were doing, and this is really awesome. Like really, it's like a cool experience. When you pray, right, and you line up next to other people, it's just a really cool community experience. But I mean, I don't consider myself Muslim, but I'd like to do the Hajj one day, so I guess I have to be Muslim to do the Hajj, so I have to be Muslim, so one day I can do the Hajj, right? Can't. Dude, so I'll catch you over in Saudi, man. I'm a sociologist. All right, so listen, let me show you this. Look at 26.8, okay? Christians 67.3. But some Christians are not like other Christians. Like some Muslims are not like other Muslims, okay? So some Christians are really super hardcore Christians, and some Christians it's kind of chilling. You know what I mean? If you go to a Christian worship service in some churches, you'd think you're at a funeral. There's like nothing happening. It's pretty boring and deadly, really. And you go to other ones, and things really happen. Things are going on, right? So do you have a sense of who the more radical, like when I say radical, I mean like hyped up Christians are? Like, are you aware of these differences in Christianity? Do you think about it?
Yeah, because I would say there's something similar in Islam too. Is like the radical Islamists. I would say so. Yeah, I do think about that. The far right Christians, I would say, or some. So yeah, I do think about it, and I do think it's actually it's true. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what the far right Christians believe? Do you have any sense of that?
To be quite honest, I don't really know.
You don't pay attention?
No, not really.
What do you think they think about Muslims, man? They think about you, especially black Muslims, but actually you're okay. It's this guy that everybody's afraid of, but you're all right, man. What do you think they think about? The three of you, actually. Anybody, do you have a sense of like what these more like really hyped up, I don't know how to say it.
So I have some white friends that I assume are more religious than I am.
Yeah.
And I don't think so they consider us as bad people.
Yeah.
The media has promoted Islam and media has promoted Muslims as. I don't think so that they see me or they see Muslims as some really like terrorists.
Yeah. Most don't.
Yeah, most don't.
But do you have a sense of who okay, here, let me just show you something. Go to the next slide. Okay, so first off, evangelical Protestants, when you think about Christians, like the Christians that are really, really active, engaged. These are the evangelicals, okay? This is like evangelical is a movement where you get the Spirit of Christ in you. This isn't like Islam, man. You all don't have this, really. The same thing, Jesus enters you, and you become connected to God through Christ. It's really a very cool thing, by the way. Do you have
I was about to say that I literally got 2-3 calls saying that we have a Bible course and do you want to join? And I was sitting in Hub one day and 2 people came to me and they were like, so we are letting people meet God. Would you be interested? I was like, what? You are letting people meet God? Are you going to make me die to meet God? What?
Yeah.
So they're like, no, we would engage you in a way that you would meet God. I was like, who is God for you? So he's like, Jesus. I'm like, okay, you're going to meet Jesus. So I questioned them that, did you meet Jesus? He was like, yeah, we did. Do you want to? I was like, no, thank you.
Oh, dude, no, you should go, man. You should check it out.
No.
Yeah. I mean, who not that? First off, you want to hedge your bets. Maybe they're right. So be Muslim, be Christian, be Jewish, be everything, man.
Maybe if I had like 2-3 more girls with me, then I would have gone.
Okay.
But like,
all right. Listen, it's a cool experience. If you have a chance to go. There's some cool local churches, but the evangelical Protestants are 24%. These are the Protestants who are really, they're the ones who you're going to meet right there. Okay, the other Protestants, I think you're never going to meet them because they're never going to come up to you and be like, hey, would you like to meet Jesus? And hand out Bibles and that kind of stuff. It's not going to happen, right? But these are the evangelicals. So the idea is of the Americans, when you think about Christians in the United States, most Christians in the United States are really living very kind of quiet lives. They're not evangelizing. They're not trying to bring other people into the fold, into the love of Christ. They're not trying to do any of that. They're just going to church and coming home and just being who they are. They just happen to be Christian. But the 24% are the ones who are really much more engaged. Okay, now there's another level. Go to the next slide. Well, by the way, go back. See this guy up here? See the guy on the screen? This is a church. And this is the guy who's probably the minister up there somewhere. He's wrapped himself in the flag. Look at the lighting at the top. That's the flag. I mean, these are like, this is serious, bringing Christ and the U.S. together, right? So go to the next slide. Then there's these Christian nationalists. So that photo was taken on January 6th of 2021, okay? When people stormed the Capitol. These are folks that's like, Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president. Like, these are the people, they want to bring Christianity into every level of the government and of life here in this country. If they had their way, even at a place like this, this would just be it. Like, everything would be about Christianity and patriotism. They're fused fundamentally, okay? That's only 1 in 10 Americans. So that's 10%. Wait, hang on. So now, hang on. I'm going to say something to the class. Yo, class, here's the thing. So you're going to hear a lot about Christian nationalists in the coming years, because this is just really starting to take off. At this point in time, it's 10% of the population. So they have the loudest voice for Christians. So if you're a Christian and you're not evangelical at all, or you're not a Christian nationalist, then these people are speaking for you, okay? They speak for you. So you understand. Like, you're Presbyterian, you're Lutheran, you're Catholic, you're part of the Methodist or United Methodist Church, whatever, but you're not really out engaging. Well, these people are, and they're the ones who are speaking for you. So they're 10% of the population, just 10%, but theirs is the loudest voice. which is really interesting, which is the kind of thing we're going to talk about. So these folks, they don't want this. They don't want, when they say they want this to be a Christian nation, they don't mean just multicultural. They mean Christian at every level. Like if you're a politician, you're going to have to take a vote. You're an oath to Christ. You got to be born again. You got to be saved. Everything is about Christ. Do you have any thoughts about that? This is like Sharia, by the way. Can one of you explain to the class what Sharia is? Can you do that? Do you know? You know, dude. You're Saudi. Come on. You have somebody. Do you have an idea?
Sharia
You're
means
Pakistani. You got it. You have it.
it means that implementing.
Yo, hang on. Listen up.
It means that implementing Islamic laws at the government level, so that the country works on the basis of Islam. So that's Sharia law, or that's, you can say, Islamic law that is implemented in the government, at the government level.
So the idea, yeah, exactly. So do you have anything to add to that? I don't want to put you on the spot. It's actually simple. It's just a sociological. Here, hang on a second. I want to get something. Hang on. All right. So here's the Quran, okay? So the idea in Sharia is in Islam, the idea is you use this as the foundation for law, for behavior, for teaching people right and wrong, good and bad. So everything that's moral and ethical, you use this. It's based on this. Now, this isn't a very thick book, right? The Quran doesn't have that many words in it, but this is the foundation upon which you determine right and wrong, good and bad behavior. That's Sharia. And so there are Muslims, not many, but there are Muslims who have the idea that you can take this holy text, the sacred text, that was translated from Allah to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that became this book. And by the way, those who don't know, Jesus is the prophet who's mentioned most often in the Quran, because Jesus is a prophet. Ibrahim is Abraham. So the Jewish and the Christian prophets are really important in Islam, okay? So the idea being like, okay, we can figure out everything we need to know. Now, I don't know how you're going to figure out things like drunk driving laws or whatever, but I guess you don't drink in Islam, so we're all good, right? Okay, so do you guys ever talk about Sharia? Like, is it like a thing that's even in your mind? Do you even contemplate?
It is. So, like, the name of Pakistan is Islamic Republic of Pakistan,
Yeah.
and it is because that there is Sharia law in the Constitution of Pakistan. That means that every law that would be, or every constitutional law that would be passed according to the teachings of Holy Quran and according to the Sunnahs, and the president and the prime minister should be a Muslim.
Okay.
That's an obligation.
So so this is what Christian nationalists would like to have here
Yeah.
in the United States. Okay? The same thing.
But we really respect the non-Muslim rights.
Yeah. In Pakistan.
Yeah, because that's also in Quran.
Yeah. Well, right. Most people do. But there are people who, yeah. Okay, but listen. So here, that's a nice way to put it, by the way. In Saudi Arabia, it's similar, right? But you all are similar?
I would say it's similar, but maybe it's not as extreme.
Not as extreme as Pakistan. Yeah. How about in the Gambia?
Gambia actually used to have Sharia law. It actually, before, the name was changed from the Gambia to the Islamic Republic of the Gambia, but it's been switched back to the Gambia like as of recent. But yeah, there were many Sharia laws like back, but they're being changed now because some of them back
Right.
in the day were extreme.
But you know, it's hard, right? Like Ruba, when you say every law should be based on the Quran, you have tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of laws in Pakistan. So it's really hard to have every law based on that. This is a pretty small book, right?
It's not small.
Yet, okay, hang on, look at it. It's
No,
not.
It has a very deep meaning.
Okay, I got it. But look, in the United States, we have approximately 10 million laws on our books, right? 10 million across the United States. So when you think about taking the Bible, even if we include the Old Testament and New Testament, that's a lot of interpretation of a lot of laws. 10
My
million.
point is, why do you even need Old and New Testaments? Like,
Yeah.
why didn't you have everything already in that one book?
Yeah, because
As Quran does have everything in that one book.
yeah, because they're written at different times. But we'll hold off on that conversation, okay? So listen, Christian nationalism, all right? So this is the idea. It's like a Christian Sharia thing. Now Christians, most of these people there are many of these people that would outlaw Islam. Like you couldn't even practice Islam in the United States. This would not be a nation in which you could do that, okay? Some of these people would argue that you couldn't even wear a hijab in the United States. If they had their way and they were in control, it would be like, no, you can't even be hijabi.
That means that Christianity does not respect other religion.
No, they don't see that. They see that
they're
they would argue. So look, in Christian nationalists, there are many different ways of thinking. People have many different perspectives. But I know Christian nationalists who would say, like, yeah, no, we don't respect any other religions. This is a Christian nation. You're going to be Christian. If you want to be, you're going to be Christian. And if you want certain jobs or certain this or certain that, like this is all about Christianity. There's some really radical people. Most are not extreme radical, people who would identify as Christian nationalists, but some of them are, man. They're like, whoa, right?
But wouldn't I say like most of them live in like villages or like smaller towns? They want to really live in the city.
They're mostly are not living in big cities. Tend to draw people from many different perspectives. And as you've learned anything from this class, you know that when you're around people from very different backgrounds, you tend to become more open-minded toward other ideas and other people, and you tend to be much more tolerant, kind of thing. Okay. All right. So here. Can we go to the next slide? All right, stereotypes. Very simple. Understanding something based on a very limited amount of data, okay? So like none of you said that you understood Christianity. I just asked you. You never said that. But, clearly you have a very limited amount of data on Islam because you all thought, like, wow, it's like 15 to 25% of Americans are Muslim, but you're limited data. You're here in State College, It's like you haven't gotten in a car and traveled across the middle of the country where there are very few Muslims and a lot of Christians. So, and not many Jews, by the way. All right. So that's a stereotype. See, anything you build on top of that would be a stereotype. It's just misinformation. And we all stereotype, right? That's like me. I'm talking about Christian nationalists. And I'm like, okay, I can't stereotype this group because I've studied enough and I know enough people and I'm reading enough to know that it's actually complicated. There's enough people. There's some people with really extreme views who would feel like they would kick you out of the country. But, they're a fairly small number, right? And then there are other people with less extreme views and, so people who just feel like, no, we should define ourselves as a Christian nation and that's just it. And it doesn't mean much more than that. And okay, well, that's fine. Okay, so now we're going to move on a slightly different conversation. What do you all think? What is radical Islam? What is radical Islam? Because you hear people talk about, we hear people, and it's part of this this campaign that's coming up. People talking about radical Islamists, radical Muslims. What are they talking about?
I would say they're like the extreme Muslims.
Who believe what?
So the same beliefs that we do, but they just like try and, I would say.
But they're trying.
Yeah.
Well, hang on, but they don't have the same beliefs, right? Because you're not radical. What's a radical belief? Like, what's it mean to be radical? Do you have? What would it mean to be radical Muslim?
I would say in this context, I would say an extreme point of view. For instance, they believe that non-believers should be exterminated, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like, that's just one example of
Like
it.
excommunicated.
Yeah, excommunicated, or they think.
Not all would say that
Not
people
all,
should be killed. Some
but
would,
like some would just say excommunicated.
so like there's a growing in the Gambia, right? There is this kind of, the Gambia has historically been really tolerant, a very, very tolerant place, right? Really tolerant of anybody who's not Muslim, even though it's like 90, like you said, 95%. I think it's actually a little higher than that, but very tolerant. But there is this kind of a movement of people who are feeling less tolerant, and they just don't want to tolerate people who are not Muslim per se, or Muslims who are not, they don't think are really Muslim. Would you say that?
I would say yes, there are certain people like that, but I believe that there are always going to be certain people like that in every single place, I would say, because some people take their beliefs a bit further than they should, I believe, and
Where do they take them? Like, what do you mean by that?
I think I would say when I say take their belief further, it's to the point where I would say to some degree it's not really what's being like taught, I would say, because Islam, it's a religion of peace. For instance, when you say Assalamu alaikum means may peace be upon you.
Yep.
So at that point when it's trying to excommunicate or like to a point like oppress someone, I would say, at that point can you really say they're really practicing the religion?
I would say no.
Yeah.
And you would say no. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Yep. Ruba.
Okay, so according, like, as the world is modernizing, so our prophet said that a time would come where sticking towards your religion would be like touching a burning coal. Like, it would be that hard. So like in this society, in this modern world, if someone is sticking by the basic Islamic principles, he is claimed to be an extremist. I don't know why. It's like, it's the basic things, but he's an extremist because the world is modernizing.
The world is modernizing, and that person is like grabbing on to
Yeah.
these. But when we in the West talk about extreme, we always link it to violence. Like, I mean, we link it to intolerance and violence. What are we seeing? Like, what do we see? Like, what?
See, that's literally what the media has portrayed Muslims as.
Yeah.
Like, U.S. destroyed Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, and when Iraqis and Afghanis thought to defend themselves, they were claimed to be terrorists.
Yeah.
And U.S. has such an influence on the whole world that the whole world called them terrorists. But why did not the world see that what U.S. was doing
Is terrorism.
Well, isn't U.S. a terrorist state, or isn't this terrorism? But only killing by the Muslims is terrorism, and that too in the name of self-defense.
So here's the thought. You guys watched my TED Talk, right? On Iraq?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that's that. Like Christian terrorists, right? Like we never see that. You never see that about yourself.
Because the U.S. has such an influence on the whole world that they cannot talk against
Well,
U.S.
it's not. No. That's not it. That's not it. You're missing that. The issue is that people always portray themselves as more tolerant, more open, more peaceful, more just smarter, just across better than other folks. And so anything that we think is bad, we're going to point it out towards somebody else, but we're not going to apply it to us, right?
Yes.
So what you're pointing out here is really what people ought to be thinking about. There's no nation in the world that makes more military weaponry than the United States. And there's no nation in the world that sells military weaponry to other nations in the world more than the U.S., including anti-democratic nations that are built on authoritarian regimes. There's no nation that makes and sells more weapons than us, okay? But somehow that doesn't come into play. Like we don't see that because A, we're not paying attention to it, and B, it's not a thing. You don't hold a mirror up to yourself. Like nobody does that, you know what I mean?
But why is now no one holding a mirror up to
Why
Israel?
aren't we doing that?
Yeah.
Well, because now that's a different story, right? But why isn't? But then I would say, I'm going to talk about this in a couple weeks. But why aren't we holding a mirror up to the Palestinians, the Palestinian leadership? So why is it, for example, that people who are supporting Palestinians, right? Which I've worked in Palestine, so why aren't people holding a mirror up to the leadership that is using innocent Palestinians as basically fodder to be killed when they know, like, listen, if we do this, all of these innocent people are going to get killed. Why don't we look at that? People don't look at the things that they don't want to see. And so it becomes, I want to defend this group, but if I defend this group, that means I have to defend this other part of that group, and so I'll ignore that. Like, we ignore things, and so here in the United States, we ignore. Israel ignores. Palestinians, everybody ignores. That's the nature of it, right? Here, so I want to go to the next. By the way, it's called arms transfers. That we produce weapons and then we transfer them to other nations. Have you ever thought about the fact that, like, this country, like what I just said there about we transfer more arms to other nations, these arms are killing people, right? Do you ever think about that? Is that like something that you've ever thought about? Because I will guarantee that most people in this classroom, the Americans for sure, have not thought about that and don't think about it. As someone from outside the U.S., do you see that?
Yes, I would say I do think about it quite a lot, because actually, a lot of the times, because a lot of tragedies, like a lot of incidents happen outside of the U.S. For instance, because I was initially raised in Benin, so you can hear some sort of like tragedies happening with like all sorts of things, but you never really hear about where those arms really come from.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if in Niger, for instance, which is also in West Africa, you will hear about all forms of like all these tragedies, but when it comes to like where are these arms coming from, because for instance, Niger is not that developed of a country, it's a third world country, so questions
it's not just third world, it's extremely poor.
Yeah, it's extremely poor. So when you start thinking about that, you start thinking about where are these arms coming from, because Nigeria can't just be producing these, and where are they getting it from? Like, and then that raised the question, like, who is the one providing them? And then you start to think about who's the biggest provider in the world, and then it traces all the way back to the U.S. and you do start thinking about it, and it's
well, and we're one nation, by the way. Like there are many nations who are selling arms. Like in Niger, for example, it's probably more likely the French, the Brits, the Russians, the Chinese. I mean, we're one of many. We just happen to lead the world in that, so we're not the only bad person on the block, so to speak, right? Hey, when you go, can you hang on a second? Hold on. Can you go to that slide right there? Yeah, I have a slide I want to put up. I want to talk about something. I want to hear what you all think about this. And by the way, does anyone have some gum? Anyone have a piece of gum? I can have. I need some. Do you have a piece of gum? Can I have a piece? Okay, so listen. So we were going to have a conversation with my friend in Germany on this, but we didn't. But you lived in Germany. So the most recent, the one on top, is an attack that happened just recently. You know, these are Muslims, right? The radical Muslims, right? Who are attacking. I don't know what they're attacking for. Like, I don't know, like what. I don't know who. I don't know who they. Why they're. Dude, can you answer it? Why would radical Muslims, ISIS supported? Why are they killing innocent people?
Maybe from their point of view, like, they aren't as innocent, but like
what are they angry at? First off, the reason someone would have a knife attack is because they're mentally ill. Let's just start right there. It's like people, like a mass shooter in the United States, people are wondering, are they mentally ill? Dude, if you get a gun and you take that gun and you go and you shoot innocent people, by any way of assessing this, that is a definition of a human being who is mentally ill. Okay, so we don't have to have a conversation about are they guilty, not guilty. Well, first off, let's just start that is mental illness. Okay, so the first answer is that they're mentally ill. But what's the second one?
I would say maybe from their point of view, like anyone that's not a Muslim should be like killed, even though that's not like what we truly believe in. Like, you're not allowed to kill another person.
Yeah. And what else are they angry at? Like, what would? Dude, first off, hang on. My question is, how is it for you, the three of you, when this shit happens? And like, because the stereotype is this is you, man. You know what I mean? Like you, and you're hijabi. You're like if I'm sitting out here, hang on a second, and I read that sign, okay, and I read the headline. It's like Muslim kills 3 people or Muslim kills 9 people, and what I'm thinking is, then I see the 3 of you, and you're Muslim, and I'm like, oh, okay, hang on. This is stereotyping, right? When a Christian does it, you think it's Christians, right? When Jews do it, you would think it's Jews. When Hindus do it, we think it's Jews. When Muslims do it, we think it's you. So how is it for you when these terrorists do these kinds of things? Like,
they just don't represent us in any way.
Yeah, but they do.
They don't, like, for example, like I said before, killing someone else,
Yeah.
that's not allowed. Like, as mentioned in the Quran, killing another person is a major sin.
No, I got that.
And maybe in their image, anyone that's not a Muslim should be killed.
Or they're just angry. Whatever. But the point being, but they do represent you, right? Because once again, hang on, I want to come back here, okay? Watch this. I read the headline. The 3 of you say you're Muslim. I don't know anything about you. You can say like, oh yeah, I like everybody, or I this or I that. You can say any number of things. It doesn't matter in my mind. I mean, me, it's a little bit different because I'm Sam Richards. I've been around the block, right? But there are so many other people. It's like, it doesn't really, yeah, okay, but I don't necessarily trust, but you're Muslim. So I've already associated Islam with violence, and Islam is bad. I've already associated that. So these people, they put a cloud over your heads. And so my question is, how is that for you, man? How is just that for average Muslims?
So it is really devastating to see that people, when anything bad happens and a Muslim is behind it, they would make it the highlight of every news channel. But if everything bad happened and some other religion person is behind it, they would never bring in religion in that context. They would be just bringing in that this is the murderer, this is this thing.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to disagree with you on this, okay? As someone who's been around, because you're saying they, and I've been around the block longer than you have, okay? If it was a radical Jewish person, they would call him a radical Jew. If it was a radical Christian, and when the radical Christian does something based on their radical Christian ideology, they say, the media says, it's a Christian man who committed this horrific act based on his Christian ideology. They do say that, right? So it's just that in this case, that we happen to be in this time in history when we're seeing more Muslims acting in certain ways, not by a long stretch. There's people, listen, there's over 1 billion Muslims in the world, 1 billion, okay? So fill Beaver Stadium up umpteen times. It's 1 billion Muslims. So this man, these two men here, they don't represent 1 billion people. Just like no one in this classroom who's Christian represents all 2 billion Christians, okay? So they don't. But at some level, people can't not do that.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm wondering, like, how do you deal with that? Like,
So, like, as they said, Islam is about peace and it's not about violence. So the ones who did that, maybe they did not study Islam the way it is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally don't represent the 1 billion Muslims in the world. And the people are blinded by what they see. So they don't go in depth, like they don't see what was the reason behind it. But they just stick to that headline that, okay, this is a Muslim. But they would never worry to think what was the reason behind it, because in this fast-paced world, people don't even have time.
Yeah.
They would just assume that.
Okay, so just like Christian nationalists, if Christians in this classroom, okay, I can bring a Christian nationalist in here who would say what they want is for Christian nationalists to take over in the United States. And when we take over, Christian nationalism takes over in the United States, these three people and all the other Muslims, everybody who's not Christian, you're basically out. You're out. You're never going to hold office, and you're going to all of these things. You're just going to, like, that is like, you will, if you want to be really part of the United States, you will swear an allegiance to not only the United States, but also to Jesus Christ. Okay? So now, how many Christians in this classroom would say, like, okay, that's fair, that represents me. That's fine. They can represent me. That's good. And how many Christians in this classroom, if I said to you, hey, that's Christianity now. This is it, man. These Christian nationalists, they're like taking over. They're like, we're seeing them everywhere more and more, and they're praying day after day after day that Donald Trump gets elected. I don't know why they think he's Christian, but they do, and so they're just waiting for that, and you know, and they're going to make this happen, right? And how many of you feel like, and if I came up to you and I said, oh, wait, are you a Christian, bro? Anyone a Christian? Who's a Christian? Dude, you're a Christian. So Mac, I come up, dude, yeah, you got a cross on and everything. Dude, you're a real Christian. This is a real Christian here. He wears a cross. So if I said to you, like, dude, these people, yeah, well, so they represent you and they're you. So like, how dare you be a Christian? Like this is like, your Christianity is, these people, like you, and then it's not these people, it's you people. How can you think that? How can you like, what the fuck? Who are you, man? What kind of an evil person are you? Like you think that would be okay. So, but that's what we do to you, right? So, yeah, how do you have, go a little further.
I don't know, I would just say that there's evil people everywhere, but people just put like religion on top just to maybe get like more views or more clicks.
Yeah, well, on top, but also we bring these things together. We generalize, like we make generalizations about. Look, let me give you one. If any of you this weekend, Ohio State fans are coming into town, okay? Here it is. Ohio State fans are coming into town. Penn State fans are known to actually be really friendly and really open and really welcoming toward fans from other schools. We're just, most fans are like that. If you go to a game at another school and you wear your Penn State gear, the three of you, people will be like, oh, Penn State, okay, hope you lose today, but hope you have a good game and that kind of stuff, right? But if any of you commit like a really terrible act against a fan from Ohio State, then what goes back is not all of you who didn't do that. It's the one of you who did. And that's the story. Oh, Penn State fans. Oh, I heard a story from my friend about what happened to her at the Penn State game. And so, these are Penn State people because of one person or two. You see, that's how this works. So the three of you, you're like, yeah, well, this is you. You might as well, it's just the distrust. So I guess then the question is, like, as a Muslim, like, when you talk about being Muslim, you mentioned Islamophobia, or you did. Are you aware that, do you like think when you say I'm Muslim that there are people out here that think like, oh, you must support that? Do you ever think that, or? It's just not part of your...
Not really. I don't really, like, I mean, at least I try not to think about it. Because I don't see, because I know like I'm Muslim and whoever did this is Muslim, but I don't really see the correlation because, again,
go ahead.
For me, it's Islam. It's a religion of peace. So, and this does not seem like a very peaceful act, I would say. So, I wouldn't like say I should be associated in any way.
Yeah, that's like, for example, if Penn State fans commits a really horrible act, James Franklin will come out in his press conference, and what he will say is, those aren't Penn State fans. So if one of you does something really stupid to an Ohio State fan, the next day Franklin will have a press conference, and if somebody mentions that about stupid thing that one of you did, Franklin, who's the coach, by the way, will say, that person who did that is not a Penn State fan. Okay? And the other Penn State people will be like, yeah, you're right. So you're saying like, yeah, well, these people aren't Muslims. If you were Muslim, you wouldn't do that. Yeah. Do you have it? Go ahead.
So I would say when I lived in Germany, not the majority, but maybe like a few of the people I first met had that perception that like they're violent, the Muslims are violent and stuff.
Yeah.
But when they actually got to know me a bit more, they and like a few of the other Muslims, their image of us changed for the better.
Yeah, totally. No, just like the images of people in the class. Were you there when various attacks happened?
I was there from 2015 till 2019. So
oh yeah, okay. So there were a few attacks actually that happened, and so for you, that must have been feel some kind of way about that.
Yeah, of course. But like, I'm just grateful that like my friends didn't really like make me feel like I was different or anything. Or just out of place.
Yeah, because they knew you, right? And so once they knew you, then they're okay with it. And you, by the way, You, you see what you said about the United States and the military, right? You like you don't. For some people out here, they're really happy you said that. I can say that, but you can't say that because you're Muslim. You're from, you're from Pakistan, whatever. I can say it, but you're not allowed to say that. And then I have to ask you, like, why can't she say it? Why can't she say that? It's like what she said about the U.S. supplying weapons around the world. It's like, wait, you don't know that? You don't know how many innocent people die in the names of the United States? In your names? With your tax money? Like, you don't have that? You should know that. You should be embarrassed that you don't know that. And why could Ruba, it's like, then somehow, you would get fingers pointed at you because how dare you say that? You know what I mean? Even I have a hard time saying it because, like, people be like, oh, Sam Richards, why are you saying that? I'm like, whatever. But I'm glad you did because this has to be, it has to be talked about. Do you have a question from the stream? What? No, not D. Do you have a question? D always has a question. Bro, we're at the end of the semester, I'm just going to bring you up here to teach a whole segment of the class. Just ask questions. You can ask them to yourself, all right? By the way, you asked the best questions of any years I've been teaching this class. Every question you ask is an awesome question. From Berkeley, says, are any of the students familiar with reformist, modern, or liberal progressive Islam? Yeah. Like really progressive Islam. Do you pay attention to that? Are you, Paul, hang on, I'm trying to get you an answer here. Are you guys aware of like really progressive Islam? Or are you just college students? Paul, hang on. Can you do a close-up? Look at this face right here. Look at this face right here. Paul, he's just a college student, man. You know what I mean? Like, no, they're busy being college students, man. Look at these faces here. Look at this guy. You think he's not thinking about that? This guy's just thinking about, where are you going to the game Saturday?
Inshallah.
Inshallah? Yeah. Okay, inshallah. God willing. That means God willing. Wait, is that because you don't have a ticket?
No, it's too early.
It's too early? Oh my God! Wait, it's too. Yeah, I forgot. You'll be just getting out of bed, dude. What most of these students will do on Saturday? They won't even go to bed. They'll just be partying all night long, and they'll go. All right. Anyway, Paul, the idea is like, nah, they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking about life, man. Yeah. All right. Do you have another question?
So.
Do we have another one
Yeah.
from the stream? No, wait, hang on. I want to go to the stream one. How many know today is Reformation Day, which commemorates Martin Luther nailing the theses? Oh, damn. Okay. Today is Reformation Day. You guys don't know what that means. This is the moment that Martin Luther... Yo, hang on. Shh. Cybernetic Qualinaut. I did not know that today was Reformation Day. This is the day that commemorates Martin Luther nailing his theses to the door of the Catholic Church that launched Protestantism, right? So for all of you who are evangelical Christians, today's a really important day because you'd still be Catholics and worshiping the Pope. All right. Are we done? We're done. Dude, nice job, man. Hey, listen, before we do this, be safe. Be safe this weekend, okay? Y'all, right? Be safe. All right, man.